Ruben Amorim has told the club he cannot wait until the summer and to sign Victor Gyokeres in January. But where is that story coming from, and is it credible? Links with a new goalkeeper. Some of our youth players are set to go out on loan to gain some experience. Romano gives an update on Casemiro's 2025 exit. Cesc Fabregas is about to do us a huge favour, and the cost of relegation is being discussed by some outlets. This plus more in today's video that will keep you right up to date with all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Welcome to Man United Review. My name is Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with all the transfer news. The kind of main story that's been doing the rounds over the last kind of 24 hours is regarding Victor Gyokeres, but where on earth is that story coming from? Well, I'm about to tell you. Manchester United will step up their bid to sign Swedish striker Victor Gyokeres in this month's transfer window. Ruben Amorim has told club bosses he cannot wait until the summer to get Victor Gyokeres. Now, that came from the Daily Star, who are not a very credible outlet. I would kind of say it's from Jeremy Cross as well, who again is not the most credible source. So I'm going to say take that story with a massive pinch of salt. I don't think we've got the funds to go out and get Gyokeres in January. We've got a bit of a gentleman's agreement by all accounts with Sporting, where we're not going to sign their players in January. Although, we are in a bit of a terrible situation with performances and the fact that we are 14th in the league and actually looking over our shoulders rather than looking up the kind of table. Not a credible source. It's been reported by loads of other outlets, that have kind of put the headlines and that on, but the Daily Star, not very credible. I would say take that story with a pinch of salt. I'm almost inclined to say throw it in the BS bin, but we have had links with Victor Gyokeres, so but I don't think we've got the sort of funds available to sign him in January, that's for sure. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, Manchester United are prepared to part ways with Joshua Zirkzee in January to help raise funds to sign Victor Gyokeres. The Swedish striker is likely to cost around £63 million. That was another report that came from Tutto Juve, who, again, are not the most credible outlet. A lot of Italian outlets are linking Zirkzee with a move back to Italy. They have done pretty much since we signed him. There has been a few stories about that going back, but the latest is that he wants to stay and fight for his place. And I do think, funding-wise, and the fact that it's the January transfer window, it's going to be very difficult to do those sort of deals in January, in my opinion. I think we might bring one or maybe two in and maybe get a few out, possibly on loan, or if we get some offers, but it's not the time of year to do wholesale changes to your squad. So, but yeah, two, I would say, not very credible sources suggesting that we could be, one saying that we could be selling Zirkzee in order to fund Victor Gyokeres, but yeah, I would say take those stories with a big fat pinch of salt. Let me know what you think in the comments. And one story that does have a bit more credibility is Casemiro. So there are some Saudi clubs who remain attentive to Casemiro's current situation. El Ittihad are the most concrete approach over the summer. El Nasir, El Qadishi, and are also interested. That came from Ben Jacobs. Ben Jacobs is, I think, a hit-and-miss journalist. He does have some kind of connections over the Saudi club, so that could be one to keep an eye on. There's obviously a lot of links and rumours, have been for a while, with Casemiro and the Saudi Pro League. The problem is, though, the Saudi Pro League have filled up their quota, because they have a quota of players from like Europe, that they can only have so many in the squad and so many in the kind of league, and they're full up. So in order for Saudi clubs to go for Casemiro in January, they have to sell somebody, or somebody has to kind of go from their clubs, and who realistically leaves the Saudi Pro League once you go there with the money, and that you're on halfway through a season. Obviously, Jordan Henderson's an example of a player that has, and I'm sure there's been others, but I don't follow it too much. So, but yeah, that's the kind of interesting thing about Casemiro. Fabrizio Romano said the following, though: not only Eriksen and Lindelof, Casemiro could also leave Manchester United in the January or summer window. The club must sell players in order to bring in new ones, and the Brazilian midfielder remains available in case of a good proposal. So that's really interesting from Romano, not because it's breaking news or anything, but the fact that he's suggesting that at some point, whether it's January or in the summer, Casemiro is going to leave, that's massive for the club because he's our highest paid player. And that money that he's kind of getting paid on his wages is massive for us in terms of PSR rules and FFP and stuff. So, if we can't sell him in January, at least there's kind of hope that potentially he could be going in the summer, which would be massive for us, like I said, for PSR rules, to get him off the kind of wages. It will allow us to bring in, obviously, maybe 2 more midfielders, which is what we need. So, yeah, really interesting to see that Romano's effectively saying that, Casemiro is going to be going, whether it's now like in the January window or whether it's in the summer, which is positive in my opinion. Graham Bailey has said that Manchester United are willing to accept a £30 million loss on Casemiro, who is ready to leave the club. Now, Graham Bailey's a hitty-missy journalist, sometimes decent, sometimes not decent, so I would kind of say, just be mindful of that. Take that with a pinch of salt as well. Of course, we're going to take a loss on Casemiro. We paid 60 million with a 10 million pound add-on for him, and I don't think even the Saudi Pro Leagues are going to be coming in to allow us to make a profit on Casemiro, considering his decline over the last 18 months. So that's stating the obvious, really, when it comes to Casemiro. But let me know what you think about the Casemiro situation in the comments. Now, another player that could be leaving in January, though, which is getting more and more, there's no smoke without fire, there's more and more stories regarding Antony. So Real Betis want to sign Antony on loan in January. He's aware of the interest. Betis need to sell Antony before they can enter negotiations with Manchester United. The Spanish side will also need to pay part of Antony's wages. Now, that was a story that I brought to you yesterday, and I wanted to bring that in first because there's been a few more updates. So effectively, the situation is at the moment that Real Betis are the club that are more heavily linked with Antony, but they want him to replace Diao, who is linked with an exit. There was another credible Spanish outlets suggesting exactly the same thing, as well. Real Betis have shown interest in Manchester United winger Antony, who could leave United in the winter transfer window. However, Cesc Fabregas could be about to do us a massive favour. So Como are closing in on a deal to sign Asani Diao from Real Betis. Clubs are finalising details for a package worth over 11 million euros. Cesc Fabregas has been crucial as he spoke to the player, and the move is now being completed. So Fabrizio Romano confirming that Diao is very close to joining Como and Cesc Fabregas at Como, which would then allow, Real Betis to go for Antony on loan. The talk is it's going to be a loan with an option to buy, and that we're going to still have to pay a significant amount of his wages, which doesn't, really help us in the January transfer window in terms of finances. However, it's important we get Antony gone, whether it's now or in the summer. And the worry I've always had with Antony is, where's he going to go? Who's going to buy Antony based on the current form? So if we can get a buyer, even if it is a loan with an option to buy, it's better than nothing. And at the moment, because there's no real value in Antony, he's a really difficult player to have to remove because of his wage and the fact he's been, not very good for us in a professional way, but that could be a kickstart of a bit of a domino effect for us as well, because yes, it doesn't help us financially necessarily, but it creates space in the squad, which is also important. But more important for me, it looks like we might be lining up a few summer deals now as well, which, frustrating because I want players in January. We need players, we need reinforcements, like you, impatient when it comes to that, but also thinking of the longer term vision. If you're in a position where you're lining up potentially Casemiro to go in the summer, if need be, Antony to go in the summer. Obviously, we had news yesterday, potentially a loan for Rashford with an obligation to buy or an option to buy could be something they're looking at. So it does help us in the long run. It's just frustrating short term. It's not really going to help us in January, but I think it's a positive if we can kind of remove Antony by hook or by crook. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, in terms of other transfer news, so he's not the only player that's been linked with a potentially a loan exit. A few of our youngsters have as well. So James Scallion is attracted loan interest. It's understood that both United and the players' side are open to a move, provided it's a natural fit for Scallion and he can get game time needed to develop further. So that's one to keep an eye on. He's a really good young player, actually, good prospect. So that'll be good development for him to be playing more regularly and playing in a more competitive kind of division. So that's an interesting one. Manchester United are prioritising loan exits for Harry Amas and Dan Gore during the January transfer window. That came from Rich Fay, who's a decent source. And United Scout, who are very good when it comes to United youth stuff, has said an unnamed Championship and League One clubs have expressed an interest in Harry Amas in recent hours. Players camp have been notified that it's yet to see if an official approach is made. So could be a January loan exit for a few other youngsters. Obviously, Ethan Wheatley's another one potentially that could be going out on loan, and that'll be good for their development as well, because I think the kind of talk around what Ineos and Sir Jim want with the young players is either loan them out to see what they're about, and then if they're not going to be ready, sell them, because of PSR, it represents the best way that we can get income in, but then protect yourself with the buyback and the sell-on clauses and all that stuff as well. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Now, there's a few of our players that are, all available to speak to different clubs at this point in time. So there's 6 Manchester United players are free to negotiate pre-contract agreements with overseas clubs from today. Ahmad, worryingly, Harry Maguire, Christian Eriksen, Johnny Evans, Victor Lindelof and Tom Heaton are all out of contract in June. United have still not triggered the 1-year extension in the contract of Ahmad, who has emerged as one of the most important players this season. Now, that's really worrying, that we still haven't had no update on Ahmad's contract situation. The latest was that we were close and they were looking to get a deal done or an announcement by the end of January, by the end of December, that obviously hasn't happened. He is technically, at this moment in time, available to speak to other clubs. We still have the option to do a +1, though, which we can trigger at any time. However, that's massively concerning that we're not any further forward with Ahmad's contract. You would have thought that would have been a priority for the club at the moment, considering he's probably our player of the season now, considering Mesraouy's drop-off over the last few weeks and Onana's fallen off a cliff as well with his form. Those were the 3 players that I was kind of like, okay, well, that actually... they're the 3 that I would have kind of said player of the year. Ahmad's kind of going to be up there now. And we're not any closer to offering a new contract. And it's really, really concerning. I know some of you have been sharing this for a few weeks in the comments as well. But hopefully it is just a case of, I don't know, maybe prioritising other deals in January, trying to get players in and out and stuff, because we can't allow Ahmad to leave on a free transfer. That's just ridiculous. Even if we do the +1, it will mean it's still not good, though. We need to get him tied down because, like I said, I think he's been arguably one of our best players this season. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, let's go through some of the transfer news. So Ruben Amorim wants real competition for Andre Onana this year. Altay Bayindir is not considered a credible competitor. Not the first time we've heard or been linked in the last few weeks regarding goalkeepers. There is rumours that Altay Bayindir might go in January. Again, is it the time of year, though, when we can kind of be messing on with goalkeepers, even reserve ones? Depends on the cost, doesn't it, of bringing somebody in. And then Team Talk, who I would say take with a pinch of salt. They're a rumour, gossip kind of outlet. This was from one of their kind of, less credible sources, I would say. However, really interesting option. Manchester United want Gregor Kobel to rival Andre Onana for next season. Amorim highly rates Kobel, and he suggested him to the board for next season. That would be really interesting to kind of bring in somebody of that quality, to United. But the clear interest I think there is in a goalkeeper. The rumours are that they do want someone to maybe push Onana or, to replace Onana, which... you can tell me in the comments how you feel about that. I personally, I like it. I like the idea of that. But let me know what you think down below in the comments. And obvious transfer story of the week. Manchester United are not in a position to meet Everton's demand for Jarrad Branthwaite. Yeah, we know we've got no money, so fair enough. I don't think there's any surprise. That shouldn't surprise anyone that we don't have the £80 million that Everton want for Jarrad Branthwaite in January. What a shock. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, let's go through this story. So, I know for a fact, Manchester United were offered Ruben Amorim in the summer. They said no because his style doesn't fit the squad. Then they hired him weeks later. It doesn't fill you with confidence. Now, that came from Alex Crook from TalkSport, who I would say take with a pinch of salt, but that's quite a bold statement for anybody to make. Any journalist to say, I know for a fact Do you know what I mean? That's kind of, that is a strong statement that Manchester United were offered Amorim in the summer, but they said no because his style doesn't fit the squad. Now, that's really interesting because, I don't think you make a factual statement like that if you're just talking shit. That's quite a strong statement, even from somebody like Alex Crook. So there's so many questions. So what's changed from the summer till now, for us to do a complete 180 spin from not wanting him because it doesn't fit the squad to then hiring him after sacking Eric Ten Hag? Does that mean that we'll back him now that we've changed our minds because, I'll back him to make the changes in the squad that are required? Are we kind of saying, well, actually, do you know what it is? Maybe we should be looking at this more modern football and he's the man to kind of do it, which means United are going to actually back him to make the wholesale changes in the squad that we need to? Or is it just poor planning from Ineos, showing that they've got, their failures and they're too reactionary and they're just kind of, going for the shiny toys all of the time, well, at the moment. So many questions from that, but it's a bold statement from Alex Crook. I kind of hope that it's the second one, that they're prepared to make the changes required to take us forward under Ruben Amorim. But we'll have to wait and see. Let me know your opinions on that in the comments. And then the final stories I've got for you is a bit of relegation scaring from James Tucker in The Telegraph. Manchester United could face the prospect of players remaining on their current wages in the event of relegation to the Championship, with the club having not inserted relegation clauses into their contracts. Adidas have the power to scrap their entire £90 million a year contract with Manchester United at one full season's notice if the club are relegated from the Premier League. Alternatively, Adidas could reduce payments for a year by half to £45 million. So a little bit of scaremongering regarding relegation. I don't quite think we're at that point. I've said it angrily, and I will still be angry after the weekend when, and more likely if, we lose to Liverpool. Those kind of fears are genuinely there because of the league position and the fact that we can't buy a win at the moment. But I do think it's a little bit premature to be talking about relegation. Like, we're not the worst team in the division. We're bad, really bad, but there's worse teams. Like, we could just stay in the league because we're there's worse teams than us in the division. So while I've reacted to it as well, and I am looking over my shoulder, and obviously it could become a reality. I'm not a clairvoyant. I can't predict the future, and at the moment it's looking very, very bleak. And it is a concern. I do think scaremongering around what would happen at this moment is a little bit too premature, because there's still plenty of games left in the league. There's still time for us to turn it around. Hopefully we can get one or two players in January to help us. But yeah, let me know what you think about that in the comments. Let me know what you think about all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Smash a like on the video on your way up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.